mate. How you going?
Good. How are we going? Good. Pumped? Pumped for today?
Yeah. I reckon.
Yeah.
Should be a bit of fun today.
Yeah.
It's always fun, but a bit more light-hearted today.
Yeah. I'm Dave. I'm Rooster. Chris. I'm Chris.
Smithy.
I shouldn't call say Dave. I don't like.
I don't. No one ever calls you Dave.
No.
Ever.
No.
If someone said, "Where's Dave?" I'd be like, "Who are you talking about?"
Yeah, and no one really calls you Matt.
No.
Yeah. There's not many Smiths that are called their first name, are they?
Not really.
Nah.
I get Maddie sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I've got a very exotic name, so.
Chris Jones and Matt Smith.
Now people know my name, and you still got no way of tracking me down. It's just fucking 8 billion Matt Smiths.
Yeah. We've all got
Well,
fairly
worry,
common
mate.
names, don't we?
Don't worry,
Yeah.
they'll find a way to track you down.
Yeah.
Mate,
Kind of dancing around the
Well, that's a
topic
bit
of today's discussion.
conspiracy,
Could
isn't
just
it?
be a bit of conspiracy, but
Yeah.
call me a conspiracy theorist.
Which we probably have been called on this show.
Yeah. Well, YouTube sort of sometimes think we are.
Yeah.
Got to wear it like a badge of honour.
Yeah.
It's all right. Yeah.
But we're going to look at, we're not out there conspiracies, I guess we're thinking conspiracy of the, I always look at the food pyramid. And what we talk about a lot on the Modern Ancestral Man podcast is, things that are a little bit outside the norm of, you look at the food pyramid, you've got to have grains, and that's your main part of your diet, and eat less meat and more veggies. And we're kind of like, well, that doesn't really add up. It's not consistent evolutionarily with what we would have done, so it's a little bit different. And at that point, you get called conspiracy theorists. You're eating all meat. What are you doing, mate? You're just listening to some conspiracy theorist on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you delve into it and you look into a bit of research, you're like, well, actually it's not. It's more consistent with what we would have been as hunter-gatherers back in the past.
And the conspiracy behind that is the sugar industry promoting that pyramid as it is.
Yeah, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast. We won't maybe talk about that too much, but the Ansel Keys sort of research that then funded into, sugar, red meat's bad, eat your vegetable oils.
Fats are bad.
Everything's low fat.
Let's eliminate fat from a diet and just have everything high sugar, low fat.
That's where we got to, and that you're a conspiracy theorist. And if you're thinking about taking your shoes off and walking bare feet on the ground to get some grounding, oh, geez, that's conspiracy. That's
grounding,
weird. What
big
a
time.
freak.
Yeah. Don't you reckon the term conspiracy theorist?
That's where I was going. Yeah.
You just want to shut someone down. They're the only two words you have to utter.
Yep.
Oh, are you one of those conspiracy theorists?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all your credibility,
Well,
gone.
that was definitely
It's for most people.
Yeah.
I'm kind of attracted by it now. If someone says, "Oh, that guy's a fucking conspiracy theorist," I'm like, "I want to hear what he's going to say."
Well, you know the term where it come from. It come from the CIA and the US government after the JFK assassination.
Well, that's what made it popular, because they had talked about it. They actually used it in the American Civil War, which is where they first came
Is that
from.
right?
It.
I actually thought it was born from, like Rooster saying, born from the JFK thing, but maybe that's where it got its
It got its
popular
groundings of the background was the British were manipulating the Civil War to bring the Americans down and ruin their financial system.
Right.
So that was the conspiracy theory term.
Yeah.
That's when it kind of come about.
Yeah.
And then it was used a little bit, but not as the weapon it was.
Yeah.
Then sort of everyday vernacular used by everyone to shut anyone down about anything weird came from the CIA.
Yeah, and
it was definitely a ploy.
An effective weapon back then, because anyone that disagreed with the magic bullet theory or whatever investigation the CIA or government were undertaking, they were deemed conspiracy theorists, and then they were just like, everyone considered you a wacko.
Yeah.
And whatever you said was not true.
Yeah.
Even though I saw a statistic, they reckon something like 25% of Americans believe that there is a lot more behind the JFK, let's say, saga, than what we're led to believe. So 1/4, that's quite high.
Yeah.
Well, it's now known, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
isn't it? Because didn't they release some documents under, like, you know, how they have a term?
They released 5 million documents in 2017, but they still kept several thousand that the CIA deemed were just too sensitive to release.
Yeah. So basically, someone's still alive that is involved.
Or something,
Yeah.
Or all sorts of stuff. But
So let's have a look at a definition of a conspiracy theory then, right?
Yeah.
So, a theory that explains an event or set of circumstances as the result of a secret plot by usually powerful conspirators.
Politically motivated sort of.
That actually doesn't sound too bad. The way you say that.
Secret plot.
Well, uncovers a secret plot. Was that the words?
As a set of circumstances that result from a secret plot by usually powerful conspirators. The secret plot. I mean, and I think even Joe Rogan mentions things on his podcast, that a conspiracy is where a group of people get together to conspire something.
Exactly.
It doesn't need
nefarious sort of.
It doesn't have to be bad. Yeah, like so. We,
okay.
You know what I mean? So we're getting together to conspire. We're conspiring to, I don't know, make a decision on something.
We're conspiring to make a podcast today.
That's the true term of it. But I mean, a more accurate modern day definition could be the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth. About 6 to 12 months.
Oh exactly. But like that initial definition that you read out, if someone said those words, to you, like, oh, are you one of those people who, and then
who
so put you on the spot.
Are you a person who creates an event or a circumstance as a result of a secret plot?
Versus, are you a conspiracy theorist? Like, the first one to me doesn't sound as bad. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Can we rattle off a list of common ones?
Conspiracy theories? Oh, man. So, I mean, the JFK one has to be the most famous, most sort of in the public eye one in the history of all time, don't you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what if we just rattle off, let's just like bang, 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 some conspiracy theories that we know about, just make a list, and then we'll go delve into some that we've had a look at.
All right, I'm going to chuck a couple of silly ones in there as well, because there's a couple of silly ones that I want to have a bit of a laugh at that might offend some people. But
you mentioned JFK?
Moon landing.
Boom.
What you got, Chris?
Oh, the Denver International Airport.
Yeah.
Do I touch on that now, or do you want?
Let's get into it later.
Okay.
Titanic sinking.
Titanic.
Oh yeah.
You've got the birds one.
Birds aren't real.
Yeah. Aliens.
Yeah.
Flat Aliens. Area 51.
Oh.
The Roswell crash and cover up.
Yeah. The aliens. There's so many there's so many different theories, isn't there?
Yeah.
What about Bigfoot? The abominable snowman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't actually think about that one. Yeah.
But Bigfoot's a major. They've got all these photos of this big woolly man walking through the forest. Anyway, 9/11. Other false flag events. So a lot of false flags, like the Gulf of Tonkin, which had initiated the Vietnam War.
And you could probably find one for almost every single war in the history of man, just about.
Yep.
Well, the Bay of Pigs, another one, and the Cuban Missile Crisis, which relates to JFK, was another one that was a bit of a false flag, and JFK got stitched up by the CIA.
Yeah.
What did he say? He wanted to splinter it into 1,000 pieces and throw it to the wind or something.
Just before he died.
Yeah.
Tons around like secret societies and power systems and stuff within universities and financial institutions.
The Illuminati.
And things like that. The Illuminati, sort of offspin from that.
Yeah. What about a recent one, the Great Reset?
Mate, the Great Reset, just seems to be happening, but we can call it a conspiracy theory.
But this is the funny thing.
But it is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and it is a conspiracy theory, but there's a fucking book written about it. And the guy who wants to initiate the Great Reset wrote a book. Klaus Schwab. There's a book. So when you get called a conspiracy theorist for mentioning the Great Reset and you'll own nothing and be happy, go and buy the book and have a read of it.
I think some of it that ties into COVID, like 5G caused COVID. That one was a bit out there. I mean, I can see the theory behind it, right? I understand. Yeah,
there's a lot of people saying like the COVID virus couldn't live or replicate without 5G and all that sort of stuff. To me, that seems a bit out there.
Or are they referring to 5G frequency as in affecting your immune system, and therefore the result could be your propensity to get COVID?
I think there's all levels of different theories within that broader.
There was talked about the nanobots in in the,
Oh, yeah.
in the shot, and
Yeah.
you know the 5G picks it up, and then you get crook.
Yeah.
But
There's all the pictures of little micro robots getting assembled in your bloodstream. And
Yeah.
shit.
yeah.
I didn't really
Where do they
like
come
that.
from though? How do people make those up? I mean, I
It's
know
internet,
there's
I don't know.
digital. You can do anything with
There's a lot of
digital.
people with good shit
Technology.
with computers now. You know, I mean, you can.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I had the right software, I could make a podcast with a video of the three of us doing something, and it never would have happened, and
Yeah.
it would look
Yeah.
very, very, very convincing.
Yeah.
So
That's scary.
Yeah.
that's
And
terrifying.
And that's a little bit of a conspiracy
Yeah.
theory, isn't it? Like people are, oh no, that's
Yeah.
that's not happening.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. But
Yeah.
What about
fair dinkum is.
what about the Russiagate scandal with Trumpy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that was a big. Well, if you said that was bullshit, then you're a conspiracy theorist. But it
Yeah.
actually came out. It was false. It was
6 months.
It was a
to
lie.
12 months, mate.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
As long as it's convenient at the time and it takes a spotlight off something else, that's all good.
Yep.
Have you guys delved into simulation theory?
Oh no.
Into simulation theory?
No. Oh, that this is actually we're all just living.
That we're
in a
actually living
simulation.
in a simulation?
Yeah.
And there's quite advanced
Ah.
sort of thinking and philosophy behind it. It's interesting to go into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that. Oh, but that was just way too full on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
The whole nature of reality and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Sort of, you know, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, I guess you've kind of seen the vibe of it, but
Yeah.
there are some very, very intelligent people that talk about it.
Yep.
Some high level sort of like physicists and philosophers and stuff like that who put a dollar each way sort of thing. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Mm.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting one. You got your classic flat Earth, obviously.
flat Earth. Yeah,
Can't buy into it. Can't see the
No.
logic behind it.
I
but,
can't get into that one.
no.
No,
No.
you know,
Um,
whatever they want to believe. It's
What about like the Operation Mockingbird?
what was that one, mate?
That was where the government implanted CIA operatives into mainstream corporate media to run their government narratives. That now is actual fact, but at the time and leading up to it, it was deemed a conspiracy.
That's the one where they're having the sort of Senate investigation and they're interviewing the CIA guy and they're like, do you have any operatives in radio? And he's like, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any in television? He's like, I don't think I can answer that due to national security or some bullshit.
Yeah.
And you find out later on they've just,
Yeah.
been running it for quite some time.
What about deaths?
Oh yeah, there's some good ones. Paul McCartney,
Yeah.
Avril Lavigne.
Avril Lavigne.
Hang on,
Yeah.
Avril Lavigne, is she
She's
dead?
still alive.
No, she's still alive, but
Oh.
it's a bit like Paul McCartney's one. Like
Oh.
Avril Lavigne died, but they put in a body double,
Right.
and she's just been.
Why?
I don't know.
What about Lady Di? That was a big one.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Well,
Yeah.
Prince Harry reckons the conspiracy theory is the truth.
Yeah,
He said
right.
it in interviews and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well,
That they killed his mum.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, I remember reading the sort of report of what they did on scene to help her afterwards, and people do funny things under pressure, but like the medical management of what they were trying to do with her injuries in the field was like, why would you do that?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
wasn't it
Do that.
reported that when she come out of the car, she was still breathing, but then
Yeah.
her attention, whatever attention she was given, wasn't adequate. She died.
Well, she
And that could just
essentially
be-
she had massive internal bleeding,
Yeah.
and you can't do anything for that in the field. She needs to go and get surgery.
Right.
So this, I believe there was a doctor on scene. This doctor got IV access and became obsessed with giving her repeated rounds of this drug that raised your blood pressure, right?
Right.
So that's all good up to a point, but it's like trying to fill up a leaky bucket. Like eventually, all the water's going to run out. Do you know what I mean? Like this it was artificially jacking up her blood pressure, and I remember sort of looking at it back in my uni days, and we were doing some stuff and looking at it and go, that seems like an odd choice.
Yeah.
They were never going to stabilise her in the field with the injuries she had. She needed to get to definitive care, and they were on scene for like a really long time. And it's like if they had maybe just raced her to the nearest hospital, there's a chance they can quickly open her up, plug the holes up, and maybe she lives, maybe she dies.
Yeah.
But
Right.
stay in the field for that long, she's definitely not going to make it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, what was the dad's
But people do
name?
funny things under pressure, of course. And,
Yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20 and all that.
Yeah,
sort of
and
things.
a different country with different sort
You're
of.
probably fucking freaking out
protocols.
because she's one of the most famous people in
Yeah.
the world. So
Mm.
probably having a little panic, but.
About Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain, yeah, the old suicide versus murdered.
Yeah. John Lennon. Chris Cornell,
Cobain.
and who's that? Yeah, Chris Cornell, and who's the other guy?
Chester
Chester Benningfield.
Benningfield.
Benningfield?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
Weren't they about to expose some sort of pedo?
I think the theory was that they were doing a documentary on child sex trafficking, and they were about to blow the lid on something. This one comes up a little bit, and then they both died in a similar way. That was a signature of the elite.
Yep.
The elites. You know, I think it was something like they hung themselves off a doorknob with a necktie or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. I don't actually know. You know, 'cause I think Cornell he took some. They blamed it on
Drug use.
Antidepressant pills or
almost like a
sleeping
Michael
pills or
Hutchins type situation, like meant to choke himself a little bit, or was he just
No. I think the official line was that he overdosed on drugs.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, the conspiracy theory is that they were both suicides by this sort of this elites use this method as like their calling card kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's funny because you can then relate that to the way Jeffrey Epstein died. Because didn't he die in some sort of fashion with a neck incident, and the autopsy showed that that death injury to his neck was more conducive to a blow than opposed to a strangulation.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
And just conveniently, like, no guard checked on him in an area where there's like no cameras and all this sort of stuff.
Well,
and
the cameras didn't work or something.
Yeah, cameras didn't work.
And that's
There's
the
been
point
a number of those.
Yeah, well, that's the point of Lady Di's death. Apparently, there were 14 cameras in that tunnel, and none of them were working that night.
Yeah, very strange. Hey,
Yeah.
It's a bit like going right back to the first one, the JFK assassination and the Lee Harvey Oswald and all that sort of stuff. And apparently, he visited some places beforehand, and conveniently, like, it was the one day in the last 5 years where the cameras weren't working and all this sort of thing. And there's a lot of that sort of tomfoolery that goes on.
Yeah. Well, one of my interesting recent ones of deaths is the guy, the inventor of the PCR test. So everyone knows about PCR tests with COVID.
Yeah, he died a few years back, didn't he?
His name was Cary Mullis, and he was a Nobel Prize winner. Interestingly enough, you might have seen the video that he made about him explaining that the PCR test was not designed to test for coronaviruses.
Yeah, I've seen this, yeah.
And then interestingly enough, a month or so later, in August of 2019, just before the pandemic hit, he died.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll tell you one.
He wasn't an old man or an unhealthy man.
Yeah. One I went down was people who die in very spectacular car crashes. And I went down this little rabbit hole, and you know, it's all very fanciful, but there's this guy showing how easy it is, especially if you've got quite a new car that hooks up to the internet. So a lot of new cars will connect to the internet for your entertainment systems and stuff like that. And essentially, it was sort of focusing on this Israeli unit who specialise in sort of like very high-end, like cyber warfare. And they're showing how easy it was for them to hack into a person's car and take complete control of it. And there's been several very high-profile deaths where people have just been in a car which is, you know, they've supposedly decided to kill themselves in their vehicle, but where they'll just be driving along the road and all of a sudden the car just accelerates up to like 200 k's an hour and slams into a brick wall or something like that.
Wow.
And people have always said like, oh, you know, that can be done remotely. Like, and they even showed that even if you've got quite an oldish car, as long as it runs with an ECU, like with a computer, so pretty much any fuel-injected car from the 80s or 90s, if someone wanted to, theoretically, you can plug a little unit into, like, you know, where they plug in the, you know, like if your check engine light comes on, they plug in the computer to check, like, to scan it. So that port there, that OBD port, they were showing how even with like an old car, you could easily plug a small device in there, which would then, you know, communicate with the internet remotely, and then they could take control of your car. Whatever features that ECU can control, so like most cars are a drive-by-wire throttle, so it's not a cable, you know, pulling a carburetor like it was in the old days, it's just a sensor on your accelerator. Well, they could very easily take control of it, bare minimum, like your acceleration and probably your braking, and just fuck with all of it.
Wow.
So like, there's shit that people can do if they want to, like, but they were saying like with these new generation cars,
it's easier.
Well, even the steering is not, it's sensors, it's not like an old school, you know, rack and pinion steering where your steering wheel goes down, the steering column, you know, which goes to a thing which turns worm drive, which turns your wheels. it's just like electronic sensors where it's sensing their position of your steering wheel, and it's through computers and servo motors like steering your wheels, but they could literally do anything they wanted.
Wow.
You know, lock your doors, steer for you, accelerate, brake, reverse, whatever they want. Like,
That's scary, eh?
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That's believable.
this guy made a YouTube video and showed them doing it, and it was so easy.
Yeah, right.
There's tons of videos on YouTube of people doing it.
That's the truth.
Well, it can be done, yeah, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is Elvis still alive?
Oh, that's a big one.
Oh.
Surely not. Wouldn't he be like 90 now? Anyway?
He'd be dead now, wouldn't he?
All those peanut butter and banana grilled sandwiches be catching up with him.
Yeah. And don't they reckon, was it JFK's brother, or which one? Which one of them is still alive?
Oh yeah, there's talk of that one, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite a good one.
Is that
What, you mean RFK, who was also assassinated? Not RFK Jr., but...
Bobby Kennedy?
Yeah, I think the brother of JFK.
Is it JFK? Is it
So
JFK or
No,
Bobby?
it's not JFK. I think it's Bobby.
Yeah, and isn't he like a puppeteer of the
To QAnon or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, man, we should look into that one a bit more.
Yeah.
Because there's been, like a bit like Bigfoot. There's been sightings of him
Yeah.
at places at various times in crowds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What about one well, similar to the sightings thing, like all the different caricatures of Joe Biden? So there's images of him, looks like he's wearing a face mask. So there's all these different actors that play him.
Oh, is he a reptile?
And, well, I don't know, but he's someone
There's a
different.
conspiracy.
There's a good one.
There's a conspiracy.
There's a conspiracy.
Yeah. But, I mean, have you seen some of the images of what they can do with these face masks? I've seen just random people in front of a camera, and they've got a face mask of a famous actor.
Yeah.
And you think it's that famous actor, and then they just peel this thing off, and it's someone
Oh.
different below.
Yeah.
It's crazy the way it is so lifelike.
Like Nicolas
And all
Cage
it is,
face off.
just it's just like this plastic sort of thing that sort of they can hide underneath the shirt collar.
Well, it's not ridiculous to think they would do that for a president, because like back in the day, they used to have, obviously like body doubles that were designed to sort of throw off like assassins and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not ridiculous to think what the American president, obviously arguably the most important person in the world, would have.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one when you talk about deaths, that Paul McCartney one.
Yeah.
That was the one. He died way back. And there's on the Abbey Road cover, he's the only one. Did he go in the wrong way, or he's the only one not wearing shoes or something? So there's all these hints that he's not actually
Right.
alive, and they got in a guy that looked and sounded exactly the same as him.
Yeah,
It's the same,
right.
different guy. Yeah. I don't know how they start. Like, how do you get these ones to kick off?
Well, yeah, I don't know. And unfortunately, we've spoken about this, that a person that discusses an alternative theory to the mainstream, or if you're looking into a conspiracy theorist, you are so maligned. And even just doing some research onto these, the tone of the person explaining the theory, whether it be true or not, is just so condescending that how dare you even look for something behind the mainstream narrative, and how dare you look for a truth behind something, that there could be a group of people secretly plotting some act.
That's not so far fetched, is it?
But you're treated like
I know.
it is.
If you'd be naive to think that there's not. You think, the president or the prime minister is the one running the country. The naivety to think that that's what's happening, and that they have all the power to go to the parliament and change things, or it's the political party. It's big. It's the big lobbyists. It's big pharma, big ag, all of them that are pulling them either way.
Pulling the strings.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's and to think that there's not a group of people that would get together and discuss the direction that they want the world to go.
Yeah.
I don't think that's far fetched at all.
No. To some people, that's just like blasphemy.
And when you talk about it as the Illuminati, this secret society that wear cloaks and whatever they do, maybe that's a way to make them sound sinister or I mean they are, but you know,
Well, it's a way to discredit people who believe in that thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like maybe you just believe in like the very sort of plain vanilla version of that, which is that there are some really rich people who get together and they plot for sort of control of a system or a government. And they go, oh, do you mean those guys that drink the blood of goats and worship Satan and all that sort of stuff? And it makes you sound like a wacko.
Yeah,
and we saw that a lot during
get the kids' blood and
we saw that a lot during COVID and things like that.
Yeah. But the truth is, though, there is documentation of the foundation of the Illuminati.
Oh yeah,
historical records.
Just using it as an example of you can just keep making things more and more far out.
Yeah.
And some people even jump on board whatever you say. Go back to the birds are real thing that we were laughing about a bit before. That just the quick backstory behind that was there was a guy who was a uni student that had some sort of psych background and just wanted to essentially do a social experiment where he went to a rally where I believe there was going to be a whole bunch of either far left or far right protesters at a venue. I think they were protesting something like abortion or something very very controversial. And so they were all there with their signs for whatever they were protesting about, and this guy just comes and just rolls out this giant sign and holds it up that says birds aren't real. Well, he's, obviously very far either left or right leaning people who are probably more susceptible to loving a little conspiracy said, what's that about? And he goes, oh, well, don't you know that the government's replaced all the birds in the world? None of them are real now, they're all surveillance drones. Now this guy has made this story up, and it catches on like wildfire, and there are still people that believe in this, birds aren't real plot. But it's just how it takes off.
Yeah.
So, there's always people that want to jump on board wacky things as well.
Yeah.
But then you can weaponise that and go, look at those fucking idiots. But if you don't believe birds are real, you're probably not going to hurt anyone, are you?
Yeah.
But it's probably a strange way to live your life, thinking you've been surveilled every time a fucking seagull goes past you. But
what about when you hit him in the car? And
I hit him in the car all the time, unfortunately. I live in the country and bloody feathers fly up and there's blood. And
you pass about 4 down the road and there's guts everywhere.
And this guy has since come out and said, this was essentially a social experiment. It's not real, but there's hardcore people that still believe it.
Yeah. Wasn't the flat Earth one a bit similar to that, where it was a hashtag?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure it was a hashtag, and then one of the I think it was like an NBA basketballer mentioned it, and then it kind of kicked off, and there is a lot of I didn't look into the science or whatever that.
I tried to look into it, so I thought there'd be some really interesting, but nothing really grabbed me. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I know you go up in an airplane, you can see the curvature of the Earth. It's real hard for me to believe that just living on a flat surface and
there's photos of people in space looking down on the Earth. It's round.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really get on board with that. But again, if you want to believe the Earth's flat, fill your boots. I mean,
it makes no sense. Well, at some point you're going to get to the end of it.
You would think so.
And then just fall off the edge?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the ship's captains of the world and airline pilots and shit would have to be.
And what about the 2 billion stars in the sky? How do you
lights?
Yeah, how do you fathom that?
Yeah. But then maybe there are some of our listeners listening who really believe in it, who go, listen, you fucking bigots talking about conspiracy theories and you don't believe this one. Like, everyone's got their beliefs, don't they? But I embrace people that have different ideas. I'd love to have like an expert in flat Earth sitting at the table with us. I'd love to pick their brain.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they would convince me or not, but I'd love to hear about it.
Pick holes in their story, and then they can say, "Well, this is what happened here."
Well, even just listen, mate. Like, I don't know. I don't see it as a threat. I see it as quite interesting. Like, I love people that have like a really interesting take on things or a really interesting like imagination or something. You go, I never thought about it like that.
There is some really good. There's this younger dryas theory. I don't know if you've heard that one.
Yeah, Graham Hancock and all those. That's interesting.
Oh man, that's super interesting, and that has a lot of sense. So if he was sitting across from you and he was talking like, that's how it is. That's real.
Yeah.
And it probably is. I don't know, based on what I've looked at. So
I give that a lot of credibility.
Yeah. If people don't know what it is, the younger dryas theory was the theory that there was this not ancient society, it was humans were quite advanced, and that explains how they made certain structures like the pyramids, Stonehenge, Sphinx. How do they do that? We don't know. We're so far advanced than they were, as it was the theory. But this younger dryas impact theory, I think it was called, isn't it? Where there was a meteor that came, hit the Earth, covered sort of 3/4 quarters of the Earth in ash dust.
Yeah.
They call it
Just coated the atmosphere and.
yeah, they call it the black mat. So that's one of the evidence that it did happen, where there's sites around the world where there's this thick, probably sort of 20 centimeters of thick black dirt dust that they can't explain, other than there was a sudden impact of a meteor, whatever it was, and that most of the Earth's population died. Then they had these advanced people that built all these structures came around, and they used to follow the stars. So they built all these structures to follow the stars, and then they went around the world. And there's sort of legends and myths about giants and arriving at places, and giants in inverted commas being giants in knowledge, maybe not giants of huge stature, but the legend, the myth pumps them up that eventually they were 10 foot tall, and they came from the sea riding a serpent to deliver this knowledge, right? So the knowledge was that they followed the stars because they worked out that every so often, I can't remember how long it was, if they follow the stars, they could follow the meteor, so they could predict when this meteor was coming based on all the structures around the world of.
Because it's interesting that all those structures, particularly pyramids, have a point at the end. So, I mean, it would have been easier just to create a cube, but they've created an object with a point.
Yeah.
And so generally, a pointed object signifies an area where you can join another pointed object.
Yeah.
So if you think of all the pyramids around the world, and they've discovered all these different pyramids, and this led me to one, like the conspiracy theory about Antarctica. Have you had a look at Antarctica?
Well,
they reckon there are pyramids. There are actual pyramids in Antarctica.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and so the theory is that those pyramids all around the world act as some sort of power generation for an outer being, another being.
Wow.
So, or whoever came to the Earth first.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, but I reckon this theory that they built these structures to follow the stars to make sure that the human race wasn't wiped out pretty much again for future generations. Like, we've got to follow this, because they follow the summer and winter solstice. So they work out, and it's sort of almost like a timekeeping device. So when these meteors came around again, they would know when they were coming based on the positioning of.
So it's like a map.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sites, and they're all sort of around the equator, which is when the population would have been. A lot in Turkey. I thought it's pretty interesting. Like that one seems like be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think Graham Hancock talks about how he's labelled a conspiracy theorist because the conventional archaeological world are going, no, we've got our theory and we're sticking with it, and nothing can change that. And he's come out, well, look at all this. Look at all this evidence I've got. I can show you.
Isn't he the fellow who's got a giant beef with the methodology with archaeology, where they only dig to a certain depth because they've decided that digging deeper than that has no bearing because there was nothing around?
Yes.
He's like, you've got to go deeper.
Yeah.
Because it's been here longer than we think.
Yeah. Well, there's sites in Indonesia where they got radar and they didn't dig, but they're like, there is a massive structure under here.
Yeah. But I think conventional archaeology, like, I'm going to pick a number of something like 12 feet or something, is sort of what they dig for, and that's their sort of timeline of how much sedimentation and silt has formed over the last few thousand years. But he's like, you've got to go,
Well, his theory is that you've got to go way back. Like, we were too short-sighted in how close we looked at. Yeah. Because this is evidence here, and here. There's actually, and you can carbon date it and do all this other stuff. We're actually looking at 12, 15, 20,000 years ago when we're only looking at 10.
Yeah. What's to say that there hasn't been a civilization like much more advanced than us?
Well, that's what
maybe they took a very different path.
That's what he suggests.
Maybe they're not sitting on fucking Apple iPhones and driving cars, but
they're advanced in their construction,
Yeah, well, they clearly could make a fucking pretty good pyramid and stuff back in the day.
Well, we can't work it out. Some of the precision on the cuts of the blocks.
And the stone came from like hundreds of kilometres away.
Yeah.
How do you get those? They didn't have any trucks back in the day.
Yeah.
Were they lugging those things?
Yeah.
Like,
Crazy.
slaves. I mean, how many? Come on now.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think
You can move them. They've proven it. You can do it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and that's a lot of people.
Come on.
If everyone's pulling together, I could understand them getting there and doing that. But yeah, crazy that the construction,
like the geometry and the
and how
like
they
you
cut
said, the precision of
and they just sit
it's all
them on an
perfect.
angle, and it's like
you know.
Yeah, but don't also forget the inside of it. There are catacombs and tombs and tunnels and all this. Like, what sort of mathematical genius would have had all that in place as the pyramid's getting higher and higher and higher? You've got all these levels and all these chambers that are being built into it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
There's a site at
engineering.
There was one site where they dug, I think it was something crazy like 80 meters underground in the bedrock, and there are all these like little pods in case this meteor thing happens again. So, and there's like 4 or 5 different sites, and there's tunnels going from one site to the other. Was it Göbekli Tepe or something you call it?
That's that one that was it was like a hill and a farmer
Well,
dug down a little bit and found like some sort of structure, and they excavated it right out, and it was
massive,
more
it could
advanced than what they decided people could be at the time. Like it was sort of like a township.
Yeah, it could hold something ridiculous like
5,000 people, 10,000 people or something.
Underground. Yeah. So they did all this. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's funny that seems super convincing to me.
Yeah, because they reckon. Sorry, mate. They reckon there's an underground city in Antarctica as well. So they actually believe that that's where the lost city of Atlantis existed. And so the theory with Antarctica is you've got all these countries that have signed this research agreement, but nothing ever gets developed down in Antarctica. It's just all this research in inverted commas.
Just check for climate change, you'll be right.
Yeah, they reckon that Hitler had a secret base, a secret underground base at Antarctica, because the Nazis did have one. That's a fact in the Arctic Circle. Did
they?
Yeah. And then they reckon if you had one up in the north, they would have had one in the south as well. But they also reckon that the Nazis travelled a lot to Antarctica for archaeological expeditions, because Hitler had some sort of fascination with old archaeological pieces and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So, and this sort of reminded me of the Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Like with the Nazis, sometimes you watch these fantasy movies and they're actually telling you a little bit of historical truth.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of
embellishment, a little bit of truth.
Yeah.
Holy Grail. That was.
Yeah, and so they reckon that Antarctica appears on maps before it was even discovered. So it was discovered in 1500s or sometime.
So somebody knew about it.
300 years, they reckon 6,000 years or something, they produced this map of it, but it was not ice covered, it was just a land mass.
Wow.
So if you took away the ice off Antarctica, you would have this continental land mass, and they reckon in that land was this underground city, and then it became extinct when Antarctica froze over. And they believe that might have been the lost city of Atlantis. It wasn't actually an underwater city, but it was lost in the ice.
Yeah, well, that was the Atlantis is a pretty good one. That's almost a conspiracy theory, isn't it? Because they talk about that.
It's like this childish sort of thing, but there's so much reference to it.
Yeah, well, they were talking about this impact theory where the impact caused what was frozen to pretty much flood the Earth. Yeah, and that was when Atlantis went under. Yeah. At the same time, and Hancock goes to, is it Canada or somewhere, and he's like, the only way to prove the only theory that makes sense to, I can't remember what it was called. It was like it was a funny name, like the Scrublands or something.
Oh yeah.
But it's this massive area in Canada that would have been frozen, and during that impact, all the water, all of a sudden, melted and then just cut through the land and ended up, filling the oceans and drowning things and covering
everything raised up.
Everything raised, and Atlantis got disappeared.
Well, isn't part of his theory that some of the damage to the Sphinx is actually water damage?
Oh,
So he was saying how the front of it is quite damaged, sort of face area.
It's water erosion.
Supposedly water erosion from torrential rain, or possibly actually flowing water.
Yeah. Well, he often talks about like all these like Noah's Ark, you know, like in the Bible, could have actually been true in that was part of the quarter of the earth that survived, and they put, maybe it wasn't an ark, maybe it was, they got to high ground, they took all the animals that they could, and they, you know, Noah was the one that, you know, but
again, maybe it's been embellished, like a little bit of truth, a little bit of fantasy.
Yeah, but he says across all the cultures around this time, that was when they had Noah's Ark. They had there's a guy in Mexico, he was the same. All of the cultures have this person that was highly knowledgeable, got all the people together, and then travelled the world and passed their knowledge back around after this big impact. Yeah.
Speaking of religion, there's another one. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's a conspiracy theorist, the dude who come out of the cave after 3 days.
That's just not true. Surely.
Where'd he go? Where'd the body go then?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, going back to the sort of ancient civilization one, a lot of the hieroglyphs in like pyramids and stuff like that as well show things that look weirdly like maybe like a spaceship in the sky.
Oh yeah.
And they've never supposedly been deciphered, so they supposedly can't read all these hieroglyphs.
How's those hieroglyphs? They found one tablet in Greece that deciphered what the Egyptian hieroglyphs mean.
Yeah.
If they hadn't have found this tablet, and they had one guy who knew Greek and Egyptian, if they didn't have him translate that, they would have no idea what they meant.
Well, apparently a lot of it they still don't have
there's heaps around that they don't have any idea.
It's like we've got some pretty clever cats these days, like breaking codes and fucking AI and machine learning and all this sort of stuff. You're telling me you feed that shit in, it can't tell you what the answer is. But my sort of point to that whole thing is, like, if there was a super advanced civilization 5, 10, 20,000 years ago, like, had they been visited by aliens? Had they been given some sort of technology by someone else? Because there's a lot of reference to, you know, visitors from the sky, and a lot of sort of folklore and a lot of drawings of, you know, beings coming down and light and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, maybe they've just been on the, I don't know,
on the mushies.
Been on the mushies or whatever they did back in ancient times, or too many drinks or whatever. But it seems like it is a common theme from around the world. It's like, well, you know, maybe the human race did come from, like, there's the conspiracy of, like, we came from space travellers. And that's how sort of, you know, inverted commas, human DNA got on the Earth back in the day, was another dying race.
It's like that movie,
came here.
Prometheus.
Exactly. You know, maybe a race or a series of races came here and sort of landed spaceships and either bred with whatever was here or started their own you know, race or whatever.
Because in that movie, he throws that little ball of DNA into the waterfall.
Exactly.
And then that's the creation of life.
So maybe it was like you know, like seeding a planet. You know, throw a bit of DNA in there, stir the pot a little bit, come back in 10,000 years and check up. And, you know, maybe that's why aliens check up on us from time to time, see how we're going. We're just like a little Truman Show. You know, a little experiment.
So what's your take on the alien conspiracy? I can't buy into it. Part of me does.
You don't think aliens are real?
No. Part of me does, from what you've just explained there, some sort of ancient visitation. But now I just think that the government are too readily keen to let us know that they are available, so now I don't trust the government.
You think it's like a look over here, look over here, look at the aliens, and over here they're doing shit?
I'm thinking it's a distraction, because I don't know the government's willingness now to let us know now. Why now? If they knew it in the 50s, maybe society wasn't ready for it, that information then, maybe we're ready for it now, but I don't know, what's your take?
There was definitely some hysteria in the 50s around Martians, people coming from another planet to take over. So maybe they're like, oh, we better tone this down, because people are going to lose their marbles. But it's difficult not to think that there wouldn't be some life form out there, right?
How could there not be?
There has to be.
The universe goes forever.
2 billion stars in our galaxy that they know
Universes, galaxies, solar systems, are you telling me that we are the only rock floating around a sun that had the right combination of things to form life?
You would think that if every one of those stars is a sun, there would be solar systems around that sun. There would be planets that fit into the Goldilocks zone, which we are in.
Yeah.
You would think that there'd be planets that have life form. Whether they can get here or not is another thing. Probably not.
Well, they want to visit us. You know,
why
they want to visit.
Yeah. Are they that advanced?
And also, we're living in a tiny, our life goes for, let's say, 100 years. That is the smallest snapshot of a fragment of time. Like, how long has the universe been around for, and how long will it be around for? We're in this blink of an eye, which is our lifetime.
Yeah.
An advanced civilization where we've got like radar and spaceships, and they've been around for, a very short amount of the history of man. Like, what's to say that the blink of our eye when we're alive times up exactly when another civilization is at the point where they can be sending spaceships and making contact with us? Maybe they were 5,000 years ago. Maybe they're 5,000 years in the future. Maybe. Yeah. It's all. I think, how could there not be? I'd bet everything I've got on the fact there's something out there, but I don't think we'll necessarily find out. I think, like you said, it's a big distraction. I'm suspicious about the motives of why it's getting talked about more, but...
Because if you think, it's probably common sense to think there's definitely life forms out there. With what you know about the universe, it's massive. Like, definitely.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
but are they like little troglodyte things, little like scaly sort of like spider-like things that
might not be a carbon-based life form. It might be silicon-based life form, or it might be fucking energetic, or who knows? Like,
And how? Maybe the atmosphere they've evolved on their planet is different to our planet. And they couldn't come, and I just don't. I agree with you. I don't think that there would be people visiting us. Why would they? Who cares? What are we doing? But it is, I reckon, it's a distraction for people to go, it's plausible because we know from what we can gather that there will be life forms out there, but why wouldn't they come here?
Yeah.
But then again, if you're an alien, right? If you're a little alien, and you're super advanced,
and you can...
It's almost like us going, I'm going to fucking go to the savannah and look at a tiger and crocodile fuck each other up. Yeah. Maybe their little alien minds are like, man, we're very intelligent. We're going to go to Earth and watch these crazy Earthlings, whatever.
Yeah.
X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Well, like we're higher beings studying through a microscope ants or insects or whatever.
We're the insects.
Why do we do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So another superior race comes down and analyses and microscopes us.
Yep.
Studies us, and particularly what we're doing to ourselves as a race.
Well, maybe they're only like 1,000 years advanced, or 100 years more advanced than we are, and maybe they're looking, going, we've got to make sure these guys don't get too advanced, otherwise they could start to, build better spaceships and come and fuck our shit up. Maybe they're keeping an eye, just going,
They talk about those like square blobs around the fighter pilots and stuff.
Bob Lazar theory.
It's like the tic tac. They're two separate things, but
right.
But that's quite interesting.
Very interesting.
But like you say, is that a distraction, or is that something the government's doing that nobody knows about?
Or is that
a little
super
energy
drone or some weapon? Or,
And then that's what I sometimes think more so. I think the government, engineering, science sort of departments have created such an advanced technology in weaponry, but also like aircraft, that it looks to people who come out in the night sky and see a flying saucer. It's a human created thing. Whether or not it emits an impulse and makes you forget what you've seen, or makes you think that you've been transported into that ship and anally probed and that sort of thing, and then wake up in the next morning in your bed. I don't know. Look at the Men in Black movie. That little thing that he holds up and flashes the light, and people then you don't remember what. Where did that come from? I'm a big believer that sometimes they show us shit in movies that technology is actually there.
Oh yeah, of course, I agree with you. Almost like a little sick
joke. We got him.
Yeah, but the alien one's interesting. I'm always amazed that it always seems to be the people in the US seem to see most of them. Why is that?
Is it just that other countries like your Russias and your Chinas it doesn't get out because there's no they're not jumping on Facebook or they're not
But
jumping
there's
on.
nothing happens in Australia. You know,
Oh, there's been some very famous ones.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. There's a famous one in South Australia where a whole bunch of school children all tell exactly the same story, which is that a spaceship essentially lands quite close to the school, and these little kids, they're like 6-year-olds. They all tell the same story. They all draw the same picture.
Wow.
They all do it at exactly the same time. There's a few teachers there that are also like, yep, this legit happened. And there's been like a documentary about it, and there's psychologists there like, look, you can't make that many 6-year-olds tell and stick to
Exactly the same
a
story.
lie like that.
Wow.
There's been a few famous ones in Australia. That's a very famous one in South Australia. If you Google like South Australian school UFO incident, that'll come up.
Yeah, South Australia.
South Australians are pretty weird. I don't know what
Yeah.
the right word is.
Yeah, I sort of wonder whether, like, you know, they more are seen in the US because the US government are the ones more advanced in
Exactly, mate.
scientific
They've got more
technology.
weapons and technology and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But where does that come from? Have they?
Yes.
If they've got
there
some
you
super
go.
advanced stuff that our normal inventors and stuff can't come up with,
Yep.
That's
did that come from a little crashed
Yeah.
thing? Or
So is that your whole Area 51 theory,
yeah,
you know, or Roswell, whatever it is,
Roswell,
that
whatever,
something
yep.
was found and the technology of that finding is being used.
Yeah, it's interesting. That one in Virginia, in Brazil. Did you guys come across that?
No.
Yeah, I have heard it. You go on.
Yeah,
Tell
it's pretty compelling. Like essentially a city of many tens of thousands of people all tell a similar story of a craft sort of being over the city, and then there's quite a compelling story that maybe one of the craft crashed and some little aliens were sort of
That's right,
walking around the
yeah.
city for a bit,
Yeah.
and then the sort of authorities are like closing in on this life form, for want of a better word. And a Brazilian, I think it's Brazilian,
Yeah.
definitely South American country. I'm pretty sure it's
yeah.
Virginia in Brazil. This military police officer from their armed forces actually tackles one of these beings and bundles it into
That's
a
right.
car, and he later dies of this really weird like infection that has never been seen before, and it was associated with this really bad pungent smell. They had to close down a whole. They took this thing to a hospital. I think it later died, and it had this terrible smell about it. They had to close a whole section of the hospital for a long time, and all very dodgy. And then you can see flight records of a CIA plane coming, like no clearance, no radio calls, but you can see like radar data of this plane landing from America and coming, and then everything gets cleaned up and taken back to the States, and multiple eyewitnesses, and very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a great story. I mean, you know, I wouldn't bet your house on it, but it's a compelling sort of thing. And again, like a very large amount of witnesses
Corroborate the same
thing. Again, probably quite hard to do, but maybe people just jump on the train and go, yeah, I saw it too. Yeah, you know, you never know. But there's an interesting doco about that, which has more recently come out. But
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all right.
those fighter pilot ones are
Yeah.
compelling because they're seen as very credible people, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're a fighter pilot, you're not wacko.
No.
You know, you're flying for the military, you're doing regular medical reviews, and you've got all this like radar and infrared and
Yeah.
Something you can't explain.
got all these computer tracking systems that are tracking these things that are moving in ways that we know, you know, human bodies can't sustain in terms of like vertical climbs and coming out from the bloody ocean, and tracking all sorts of US military operations where they're at rendezvous points that they shouldn't know where they are, and all these weird things.
And blocking their communications system, navigation aids, which apparently is an act of war or something, if another aircraft does that.
Yeah, yeah. If you jam like a fighter jet or something like that, it's an act of war, and they're allowed to shoot you down and all sorts of stuff. And very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you say, a lot of that could just be weapons we don't know about, or it could be the Chinese trying out some new toy they've got, or the Russians, or...
Yeah, because a fighter pilot's not going to be privy to all the advances in,
you just average Joe flying an F-18, they're not going to be telling you about their...
And if they want to test something out, that's a good way to do it against the fighter
exactly.
pilots. Go
Exactly.
Are we getting detected here, or are we coming up with something? Can they see what we're doing?
Yeah. Can we cut out another aircraft's navigation system? That'd be a very advantageous.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, because that would obviously be similar to a Chinese or a Russian jet or whatever. They'd have similar sort of technology. Because the story behind that you guys have probably heard is that they started seeing all these Tic Tacs and spears and stuff after they upgraded their weapons systems. So like their F-18s and some of their frontline sort of aircraft carrier jets got this new suite of avionics, which was much more advanced with much more advanced like tracking and stuff. And that's when they started noticing these things because they were popping up on their screens, and then they were getting these things to lock on. Like they got some Gucci thing where you'll automatically lock onto it and you can see it on a little screen. And then the pilots are starting to, obviously with the help of that, seeing it with their eyes and stuff like that as well. So, right. Lots of stories of them coming out from under the ocean.
Yes.
Oh. Yep. So those Tic Tac ones, often associated with craft coming out from the sea.
Yeah.
And then to do crazy stuff like shooting up to 60,000 feet in 3 seconds and stuff that our conventional things can't even go close to. So
yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the under the sea is a great place to hide shit.
Oh, mate. Exactly.
Yeah. Not many people go down there, and not many people can.
And zero civilians.
Yeah.
Well, that's
not many civilians going around with a private sub that can go down many. Well, especially these days.
Well, if there is one with a private sub, then let's make sure he doesn't come back down. There's another little
conspiracy. Wasn't it?
Yeah. Apparently, the government knew about that submersible incident days before it was actually released.
Yep.
Wasn't there a theory around the Titanic with that one? Was that's not actually?
Well, they were looking for the Titanic, weren't they?
Yeah,
they were looking at it.
It wasn't actually, and then they didn't want them to go down there because if they actually saw it, they'd realise it wasn't.
Poking around down there.
Yeah, it wasn't actually the Titanic.
Yeah.
It was, but I think that got shut down because they'd been down there.
Well, James Cameron's been down there in his sub, and it's been documented reasonably well.
But do you know that theory about the Titanic?
About the sister ship?
The
passengers on? I know you know this.
It's called the Olympic.
Okay, yep.
So let me just sort of skim through this a little bit. There was a shipping company that the Titanic was owned by called the White Star Line. And the theory goes that it swapped ships for the voyage. So that ship, what did I say it was called?
The Olympic.
The Olympic. That was one of their first big ships, and it was out at sea, and it had an incident with a warship called the Hawk, and it was severely damaged. So it was deemed that the Olympic, it was their fault. So White Star Lines had to take responsibility for that incident. So therefore, because it was their fault, insurance would not cover the damage and the repairs to the Olympic. So the Olympic sat in dry dock for months, and just not earning any money for White Star Line. And so what the theory was that they swapped the second biggest ship, which was the Titanic, for. Sorry, let me just get this right. They made the crashed Olympic the Titanic, and the ship that was to be the Titanic, the newly built one, became the Olympic, and then that continued its service. And so the Titanic, which was the old damaged Olympic, did that voyage, which then apparently hit the iceberg, quite conveniently in the front, the hull where the damage was for the incident with the military vessel, the Hawk, on the Olympic. And that's the theory. Then, because it was an incident involving an accident, like an iceberg, and it sunk, then insurance paid out for the Titanic. And apparently, there's also another little theory that the coverage, or the insurance coverage of the Titanic, weeks before its launch, was ramped up to $12 million or something, and it was originally only covered for 3 or something like that, and the insurance damage was like $5 million, but the insurance policy was jacked up. There was no public viewing of the vessel before its maiden voyage, so they just didn't let anyone go. There's little intricacies with the porthole windows. So apparently the Olympic had 4 chimneys, the Titanic only had 3.
I've heard.
So they created a 4th one, which didn't work. It was just there for design. The Olympic...
Is there any footage of it creating smoke out of only 3 chimneys or anything like that?
I don't know. That'd be interesting.
When it's steaming out of port, and if you see maybe the 4th one's...
Yeah. and you listen to some commentators about this theory. They just say, have a look at the ship, the Titanic, as it gets released from the dock on its maiden voyage, and you can pick all the little things. You can even see, they reckon, I don't know, I've never really seen the footage, but you can even see the word Olympic emboldened underneath the paint or something like that. I don't know how true that is, but apparently the Olympic had 16 porthole windows, and its rectangular windows along the side were unevenly spaced. The Titanic had 14 portholes, and all its rectangular windows were evenly spaced. But then, when the Titanic came out, it had assumed the different window structure, like the Olympic.
Wow.
The other theory behind it goes was the establishment of the Federal Reserve Bank by J.P. Morgan. So J.P. Morgan and other big financiers. So J.P. Morgan owned White Star Lines, obviously multi-millionaire.
So does this? Sorry to interrupt there. Does this one tie into the last one, or is this a separate theory?
It's a separate theory, but it still ties in because J.P. Morgan owned
owned
that shipping line,
and
whether he dodged the insurance thing or whatever, or whether because before that maiden voyage of the Titanic, he was due on that. He had a ticket on it. He had his own massive cabin on the Titanic. But so the formation of the Federal Reserve Bank was his concept, and also some others. And there were 3 others, multi-millionaires on that Titanic ship cruise that opposed the formation of the Federal Reserve.
This is the elite we're talking about, the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Wearing the...
But these guys, I think there was like a mining magnate, another billionaire guy, and someone else, I can't remember their names, but they all opposed it. So interestingly enough, at the very last minute, these guys assumed their trip on the Titanic, but J.P. Morgan, day before or whatever,
there was 2 of them, wasn't there?
cancelled his
There's another
Two,
guy?
2 million, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, J.P. Morgan, and there's someone else.
Yeah, I
They
can't
both-
remember the name, but then after a year after the Titanic sunk, the Reserve Bank was formed with J.P. Morgan and that guy you're probably referring to.
Can't remember his name.
It's interesting because, as I understand it, the Titanic obviously didn't hit. If you follow the story, the Titanic obviously didn't hit an iceberg and then immediately catastrophically break in half and sink. It sort of sunk over the course of some time. It's interesting because I've heard that first class passengers were all given, preference for a lifeboat.
Yeah.
If you're one of the richest guys, millionaire back then, I would think you're probably going to get a seat on one of the lifeboats.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be like, "No, fuck off, mate. You're, go stand at the back of the line." It's interesting to me that those guys would have perished.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people obviously did survive the Titanic.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to me that they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine they'd be down in the engine room chatting with the guys shoveling coal in the fucking burner or anything like that. They're probably going to be sitting, high up somewhere. So I mean,
Depends on where they were when it hit, because it was late at night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was at night time.
Yes.
Or early hours of the morning.
Sleeping heavily.
Didn't it take some 6 hours or something to sink?
Something like that, yeah.
But I think the story goes...
Some of the lower levels would have drowned early because the water would have...
Yeah, and also I think some of those guys that might have even still got out on life, things died in the cold.
Yeah.
The elements killed them. Yeah.
Mm.
But it's an interesting one, I mean...
Interesting one to delve into a bit more, yeah.
What a way to claim insurance. What an elaborate plot.
Yeah, but
making it
you're right. But I think the theory goes it wasn't supposed to sink so fast. It was supposed to also have an incident next to another ship that could come to its aid quite quickly. But it might have just gone fucking pear-shaped. But it was supposed to just the hull was supposed to reopen or something, because they mended it with thinner steel or something like that, and it was supposed to breach, but then give people plenty of time to get out. Whether the iceberg is a true thing, or there's even a theory that it actually hit a sub or another war vessel, and that's what tore the hull so quickly.
Well, that's all right then. I guess it's nice that they were thinking of the couple of thousand people on there. That we didn't want to kill all of them.
Mate, do you know the history of the second ship?
So
you had the Titanic and the Olympic. You're saying they did the old switcheroo.
Yep.
Did the other ship stay in service for many years?
I think it did. I think it
because
did.
obviously that would be a way to sort of check the differences.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, mate.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the Olympic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a footnote in history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just one that intrigues me. I just find that so interesting.
It's an elaborate plot, isn't it? Like, but you could probably think of these elite guys sitting there coming together and plotting that.
Yeah, because you don't like why
money corrupts people, doesn't it?
And how can you put it past them to come up with something like that? Because I mean, look at all these false flag events. Like here we can talk about 9/11, the Gulf of Tonkin, all these things. Like even the January 6th Capitol building protest.
That seemed dodgy, hey?
Oh man, have you seen some of the staged actors in that?
Some of the footage, yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy. I've got his name written down here somewhere. His name was Ray Epps, and he was a guy. He wore the red Trump hat.
Yeah.
And he was the one like egging people on. Go storm the Capitol.
Yep.
Let's storm the Capitol. Rah rah rah.
Yep.
He was like really encouraging the whole crowd. He was creating a frenzy.
Yes.
His photo was then put on they had a most wanted list of all these fucking, they called them domestic terrorists who not invaded. You look at the footage and people are strolling. People are strolling through the Capitol.
Stand there, go, hey, come on in.
Yeah, which is their actual right apparently to go into the Capitol because it's a public building.
Yeah.
And this guy, his photo was on that list, and then when they wanted to start arresting people and putting innocent people in jail for 10, 16 years, whatever, his photo was removed. And they believe he was an FBI staged actor to create that frenzy.
Agent provocateur.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that stuff happens. I mean, we know, whether or not that was the case for that one, we know that is a tactic that, intelligence community uses to get things that they want.
Yeah. Well, they knew 2 days prior to January 6th that there was going to be a massive turnout there. Trump actually requested the National Guard to be present, but the Democrats, or whoever it was, refused it. So I think Nancy Pelosi was one and some other guy.
Nancy Pelosi.
They refused that request, so there was no National Guard presence. So all these little things sort of add up. And just going back to your point there, mate, about the Titanic insurance thing, these people can conjure up this shit, and they've got the power to do so. So why dismiss it that it could never happen?
Yeah, I clearly can.
Yeah.
Clearly, a lot of dodgy shit goes on that we sometimes find out about, and sometimes we don't.
Yeah.